Ahoy there, chummers, and welcome to the Sixth World. And today's episode is going to be a little bit different than anything that we've done in the past. It's not going to be a lore video. It's not going to be a review video. It's going to be kind of a discussion, a shadow talk, if you will, of the state of Shadowrun and whether or not Shadowrun has lost its soul between 1st edition through 6th edition. Now, what prompted this type of video was a question that I was asked by somebody on the channel in one of the videos. I believe it was in the Attitude video. I've got the comment pulled up right here, so I'm going to go ahead and read it to you, and then we'll kind of do a little bit of a discussion of it. It says, I've been gaming for over 30 years, but just jumping into my first Shadowrun GMing experience with Shadowrun 6th. From the outside looking in, it appears all of the good adventures setting material all come from Shadowrun 1st through 3rd editions. I know that you have not read 5th or 6th edition, but can you verify in your opinion if the adventures campaign setting material lost their soul after 3rd edition? I guess what I'm really asking is, will I be fine starting with Shadowrun 6 and working my way forward, sort of an ignorance is bliss deal? So, definitely an interesting question, whether or not Shadowrun has lost its soul in between editions. And again, I've said this many times on this channel. I don't have a lot of experience with 5th and 6th edition at all. The only times I've glanced at a 5th or 6th edition book has been in the pursuit of a lore video of some kind. So, I haven't actually bought any of the books. I haven't sat down and read any of the books with a critical eye, and I haven't played 5th or 6th edition. I know people who like both editions. I know people who hate both editions. A friend of mine actually absolutely loves 6th edition Shadowrun and thinks it's as close to 1st edition Shadowrun as the game has ever been since 3rd edition, but there's a lot of people that don't feel that way about that edition. So I don't have an opinion either way with regards to the quality of 5th or 6th edition because I don't have any experience with it. Now, having said that, what I do have experience with is I do have experience with GMing Shadowrun and playing Shadowrun from 2nd edition up to 4th edition, and I have been playing it and running it for almost the last 30 years. So I feel like I can kind of speak a little bit to this question and do my best to try and answer whether or not Shadowrun has lost its soul in modern editions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start talking about what happened when I transitioned from 3rd edition Shadowrun to 4th edition Shadowrun. I had run Shadowrun 3rd edition for many years, but I had gotten out of the loop with regards to like tabletop gaming news, and I wasn't aware that 4th edition Shadowrun had been released until I think probably 2 or 3 years after it had come out, maybe even a little bit longer than that. So. And the reason for that is just my local game store doesn't carry a whole lot of Shadowrun products at all. They currently have, I think, one Shadowrun book on the shelves, and that's pretty much it. It's not even the core book. It's a source book of some kind. I wish I could remember which one. I really should go get it at some point, but yeah, whatever. That is neither here nor there. So when I switched from Shadowrun 3rd edition to Shadowrun 4th edition, I thought to myself, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be the same game I love, but it might be a little bit simpler, maybe they've revised some things in it, maybe they've made deckers and riggers more tolerable to run to the point where you don't have to create 2 separate adventures for a decker character in order to make them work. And then I picked up the book and I opened it. It wasn't the 20th anniversary edition book that I got, but it was just the regular 4th edition book. And I remember thinking to myself, this is not Shadowrun. I was looking at it and I was reading it and I was like, this is not the game that I remember. This isn't what my 3rd edition game was all about. This is something completely different. And it was pretty jarring. It really was. And I remember it vividly, even though it was probably 15 years ago or somewhere around there since I first picked up the Shadowrun 4th edition book. It's been a long time. But that sort of thing, that realization, that shock kind of has stuck with me since then. And it's a very, very vivid memory that I have of that. So initially, if you had asked me back then, has Shadowrun lost its soul, I would say yes, because the 2 editions looked and felt completely different to me. Mechanics-wise, they were very similar in a lot of ways. But like I said, the look and feel was completely different. The art was different. The tone of the books was different. The timeline was different, and had been advanced a couple of years. I think like 10 years from where Shadowrun Third Edition was, or something like that. So it was quite the culture shock, I guess is how you would term it. But as I've thought about that question and whether or not Shadowrun has lost its soul in the intervening in the later editions over the years, my answer to that is probably going to be no, but. So at its core, Shadowrun, I think, is it's still very much the same game. It's a dystopian cyberpunk future game with elements of high fantasy in it. And that has stayed as a constant throughout all of the editions of Shadowrun that I've seen, from 1st edition to 4th edition, all the way up to 6th edition, because it's a basic building block of the game. It would, removing that would be like taking the dungeons out of Dungeons & Dragons, although Wizards of the Coast seems to be doing a really good job at trying to do that, but it's neither here nor there. That's a subject for another totally unrelated video for another day, I think. But yeah, so the core of Shadowrun is still there. I think the difference between the editions and how they feel and how they look is the fact that how it expresses that dystopian cyberpunk feel has changed, has evolved over the years. Shadowrun's 2nd edition very much is a product of the 80s. Big pink mohawks, the punk vibe is very, very strong throughout Shadowrun's 2nd edition products and stories and books and all of that sort of thing. And as you move into Shadowrun 3rd edition, that kind of lessens a little bit, because 3rd edition came out, early 90s, somewhere around there, maybe mid-90s. I don't have my book in front of me, so I can't check. So 3rd edition, you still have that pink mohawk feel to it, but now you're starting to get some of that 90s cyberpunk creeping in. So you're starting to get things like, influences from the 90s, like Johnny Mnemonic and that sort of thing. So you're seeing less of the pink mohawk 80s style and more of a 90s, I'm going to call it 90s grunge style. That's what I'm going to call it, because grunge music was just coming into its own in the 90s, and Shadowrun has kind of that feel to it. A little bit. It still has that 80s feel to it. The art is very similar. The tone is very similar. So it still has a lot of that feel, but it has more of a 90s grunge sensibility. And the later products in Shadowrun, as you get closer to the late 90s and 2000, especially after the 2000s, after 1999, you see the influence from The Matrix start to creep in as well. So you have less and less of this 80s dystopian cyberpunk feel and more of a Matrix style cyberpunk feel to it. The long trench coats, and you still have the katanas and the pink mohawks and everything, but all that's giving away to more of that late 90s, early 2000s aesthetic that was very heavily influenced by films like The Matrix coming out. And then you get into 4th edition, and 4th edition, the Matrix influence has fully taken hold at that point. And you're also starting to see, in 4th edition, the beginnings of anime cyberpunk starting to come into it, I think. You're seeing a lot more, in the artwork especially, you're starting to see a lot more Japanese-style influences, almost, I want to say, in there. So you're getting, you've got even less of that pink mohawk feel to it. And now to the point, we're now to the point where the 80s pink mohawk feel really isn't present in a lot of the modern Shadowrun products that I've seen, and a lot of the modern Shadowrun artwork that I've seen. It's more that late 90s, early 2000s cyberpunk, but it's also mixed with a more modern feel that harkens back to classic anime. You're seeing more of, I want to say more of an Akira style influence in the game itself and in the artwork, especially. Like they're almost like they're going forward but going back at the same time. if that makes any sort of sense. I don't know if it does. I don't know if I'm just rambling here. I think I probably am, but I hope you get what I'm saying. I really do. The soul, the essence, the feel of Shadowrun has changed over the years. Well, the feel of Shadowrun has changed over the years. The soul has evolved over the years as well, with the sensibilities of whatever time period a particular edition comes out in. So that's why you're getting, modern Shadowrun, you're getting more of an anime, Japanese anime feel to it than the classic 80s punk rock feel to it. Now, as far as whether or not everything that's good in Shadowrun, supplements, adventures, campaign settings, and all that stuff, whether all of that is in 1st through 3rd edition and is locked in those editions, I don't think that's the case. I really don't. Again, not a lot of experience with 5th edition and 6th edition Shadowrun stuff, but 4th edition I do have a lot of experience with, and there's a lot of good stuff in 4th edition Shadowrun. I mean, just look at my channel. I've done a lot of the book reviews that I've done have been on 4th edition books. 3rd edition and 2nd edition books a lot as well, but there's a fair amount of 4th edition book reviews that I've done where I'll say that this is a great product. The biggest thing that I like about 4th edition are those DLCs, those downloadable content, those quick little source books, like 10 to 50 pages tops. It's like maybe $7 or $8. It comes in a PDF file. You buy it, you download it, and you're good to go. And then you've also got the Shadowrun missions as well. Now, the Shadowrun missions, I've run a couple of them. They're very hit and miss, but there's a lot of good ones in there. There's some good stuff in there, and some stuff that really captures the feel and essence of Shadowrun. I think the season 2, I think it was, 2 or 3, whichever season takes place in Seattle, that I think really captures the essence of the original feel and soul of Shadowrun. Then you've also got the one where they ran, the mission took place in Manhattan. A lot of that is classic Shadowrun feel to it. Similarly, a lot of the source books in 4th edition are very good source books. The core supplement books in Shadowrun 4th edition are all very, very good, packed to the brim with rules and background and news and things like that. And they all do, most of the Shadowrun 4th edition books, not all, but most of them do a really good job of world building, very similarly to what 1st, 2nd, and 3rd edition Shadowrun did. Now, that being said, 1st through 3rd edition Shadowrun is classic. I mean, it's where the game really was in its groove, I think, and it's a different quality. It's a timeless feel to it, is what it is. Now, the good news is Shadowrun, at its core, as a game, hasn't really changed a whole hell of a lot over the years. So it's very easy for you to take something from 1st, 2nd, or 3rd edition and port it over into a new edition. I've done that many times. I've run 2nd and 3rd edition and a couple of 1st edition adventures with 4th edition characters. There's not really a whole lot of converting stats-wise that you need to do to make something work in a later edition. And of course, the storyline, you can just lift that whole hog. And at its core, the thing you have to remember is Shadowrun is your game. If you are running Shadowrun, you pick and choose what you want to run. You pick and choose what you want to use. If there's a particular event in the timeline that you don't like, or if the timeline that in Shadowrun 6th edition is in a place where you don't really, you don't enjoy it, and you like that classic, like if you like 2050 or 2060 Shadowrun better than, whatever year it is in 6th edition, but you've got a 6th edition book, run a 6th edition game set 20 years in the past. There's literally nothing stopping you from doing that. I run Shadowrun 4th edition, but I don't use a lot of the events that are in the timeline. I kind of stick more to that like 2063 feel for Shadowrun. That's the year that it's always going to be for me in Shadowrun. It's always going to be 2063. So all of my games use that time period, use that time frame, and focus more in on those events. So anyway, this video is running a lot longer than I intended it to run, so I am going to go ahead and leave it with a question to you. Do you feel like Shadowrun has lost its soul or not? Do you agree with what I'm saying and you think that the soul is still there, it's just evolved over the years to reflect changing tastes and sensibilities and the evolution of the cyberpunk genre itself? Let me know in the comment section below. We'll have a bit of a discussion. Maybe we'll do a follow-up video. I don't know. We'll have to see. As always, if you liked what you see, like and subscribe and support the channel. Hit that notification bell so you will always know when I upload a new video. Social media links are in the description, as well as my PayPal donation link if you want to kick a couple of bucks my way, and I will see you all next time. And that's the chip truth, chummers. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more Shadowrun content. Hit that notification bell so you will always know when I upload a brand new Shadowrun video, and until next time, remember to shoot straight and never, ever deal with a dragon.